The Tascam 238 Syncaset. Quite an interesting little cassette recorder. Not your standard 2-track or 4-track. It records 8 tracks onto cassette. Mine's acting up a bit though, so let's go ahead and get this lid off and see what's going on inside. Pulling backwards, the panel comes off and exposes all those delicious voice cards right there, and a beefy fucking transformer. The first thing we're going to need to do is pull all of these cards out. I want to make sure each one of them is okay, at least visually, and also jiggle around some of these contacts to make sure that things haven't gotten oxidized over the years. We start by removing the shielding here, which is seriously messing with my camera's exposure right now. Oh my god, get out of there. Now we've got all 8 of our voice cards a little more exposed, so I'm gonna maybe wait on pulling those out. I can't seem to get them out for some reason, and that reason is I'm an idiot, and I forgot you have to pull upwards on those. Now, let's go ahead and let's remove this bracket at the back. This is one of 2 pieces that holds all of the cards in line vertically. Prevents them from wiggling around and losing contact randomly. You can see all those little teeth cut into it there. Now, of course, you'll probably notice the other bar is still in place. I haven't noticed that yet. Give me a few minutes. I'm sure I'll come around to it. You see, you can't actually pull that out without removing that bar. Oh, he's learning. Oh god, this is painful. Yep, figured out there was still a screw that needed to be released, so releasing that allows us to pop out our first voice card. Having a little bit of difficulty removing these cards at first, but I slowly get the hang of it. Just have to be a little delicate. You never know what's going to break something of this age. I gently set these off to the side here so I can pull each of those connectors off individually. With our card removed, I go ahead and mark which voice this card belongs to. Now, back to the stack. Let's go ahead and let's pop off the remaining connections here from the other 7 cards, and we'll label each of these in turn as I pull them out. Now, to get these off, as you probably noticed there, you have to pull towards you, away from the card. There's a little locking mechanism built into the plastic that holds the header in place, so pulling backwards kind of loosens that up a bit. I'm just an idiot. Alright, and final card is out. With all 8 cards pulled out, let's go ahead and check those RCA jacks on the back. You see, I have a sneaking suspicion. I think that these might be a little bit dirty. So, we're going to take some handy-dandy alcohol spray and give these guys a good shine. After a thorough wipe down, things are looking a little shinier. First thing we're going to want to do is check continuity to ground. So taking this black probe, we go ahead and hook that inside the chassis to ground. And with that held in place, just kind of shoved into some plastic, this red probe, we can poke at each of these little shields here on the RCA connectors and make sure that there's a reasonable continuity to ground. Now, we're going to test continuity on our ins and outs. I'm using this little RCA to 1/4 inch adapter here, well, 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch adapter, and we're going to make sure that we have decent continuity from the connection on the inside card bus to the actual inputs and outputs on the back. So we're going to go ahead and test continuity from the actual card bus here. You can see me measuring with the black probe, and then I move each RCA jack and measure on the 1/4 inch adapter down there to make sure that we've got continuity from the bus to the outputs and inputs. And so far, seems like everything's passed, which is significantly better than when I started. It's a little bit difficult to get around these caps, and I don't really feel like breaking anything, so I'll keep this pretty brief cleaning-wise. It's honestly not in terrible shape. There's just a bit of dust accumulating. But with things cleaned up, let's insert the cards. And with that, we've got all of our cards plugged back in. So let's go ahead and do the most satisfying part of this whole fucking thing. Now, let's go ahead and hook up our ins and outs here. Oh god, look at this fucking mess. Oh, Jesus. It's already so tangled. Let me try and get these separated a little. And all of the black connectors in. Let's move on to the white connectors next. You'll notice, of course, they're color-coded. You use the exact same color code for the in and the out, which is a little bit convenient. So it's typically easiest to start with the black ones first when you're putting them back on. And a few minutes later, I got everything plugged in here, ready to go. Let's give it a shot. Tascam looks to boot fine. Let's go ahead and put a tape in and see if we get any playback. Now, thankfully, we haven't fucked anything up too badly yet. We still get playback. Still getting playback. I think that's enough of this tape. It wasn't actually recorded ever in this 8-track. It was recorded in a 4-track, so I do have a tape that I've actually recorded on in this machine before. So let's go ahead and see. Yep, looks like we got all of our channels coming in like normal, as I would expect. Jumping around, we see all 8 tracks functioning fine. So, thank God I didn't screw this up. Now, the final thing I'm going to do is a little bit of a test on the recording ends. I've got that DR40 there hooked up to the converter to RCA, and I'm making sure each of those inputs gets roughly the same level for the same amount of clapping. Looks like everything's good. So right now we are looking at the Tascam 32, a 2-track 1/4 inch tape machine, reel to reel of course. And this is going to play a little pre-recorded track that I did the other day here in the studio into the Tascam 238, which is just out of sight down here. So what's going to happen is the 31st and 32nd channels here on the Mackie 8 bus are going to have the Tascam 32 piped into them. Then that is sent out to all 8 subgroups. Each of these subgroup channels is then sent out to the Tascam 238 and then fed back into the mixer. So whatever we see on the tape lines across the meters at the back there should be exactly what we're getting into and also out of the 238 here, which will be 4 copies of the stereo mix from the Tascam 32. With that brief, terrible explanation out of the way, why don't we give this a shot? So, we'll start playing here to verify that we even have the correct levels and everything else. There might be a little bit of weirdness too. The 8 bus that I have over there is a little bit finicky still, and sometimes the subgroup sends don't work correctly. 31 and 32 especially sometimes are finicky. There might be some small level discrepancies, but as long as things match, from whatever goes out of the mixer and into the 238, I'm happy. So, here we go. We'll let that play for a moment. And as you can see, it looks like channel 2 on the subgroup is acting up a little bit, but you can see that reflected in the inputs here on the 238, as well as what's being output from the 238. So, why don't we take this up just a small notch, bring you back over this way. We're going to record to this tape and make sure that playback sounds relatively okay. And of course, to note again, channel 2 here being a bit low is completely fine. That's no issue with the actual hardware. That's entirely down to the mixer being flaky at best. Why don't we skip around a moment? And we're going to go ahead and stop. So, let us come over here and listen. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and check what was recorded to the tape. I'm kind of expecting there to be a lot of interference since I don't really have any of the cabling done up nicely, and the unit itself is just sitting on the mixer, so I don't expect this to sound stupendous, but as long as it's not crackling and dropping out randomly, then whatever I've done has definitely fixed things up a little bit. So let's go ahead and let's listen to that. Yep. And as you can see, tape playback pretty much exactly the same as what it was before, including channel 2 being a little bit low. So sound is awful, however. And there's our gap too. Excellent.